Hey, Carla. Thank you for joining. Hey, Miss Rosa. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Cherise. Hey, Jolanda. Thank you for joining. So my plan is not to be on here too long, but I just wanted to share with you a little message that I had. It ended up becoming a series. I don't know. Hey, Drika. And I think my mom just shared it, so thanks, Mom. So I'm just going to get started because obviously it can be replayed. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, I attended the Young Leaders Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, Larry. And it was phenomenal. I shared a little bit in a live on Wednesday night, flying back from Atlanta. And the conference was just motivational, powerful. It was anointed. Felt the anointing was all through the conference each day. And so that conference led me to examine myself and really just do some thinking, some reflecting. And so I just wanted to share some revelation. Hey, cuz Miranda, some revelation that I got from the conference. So for the most part, this is geared to the women. However, I do believe men as well can benefit from what I wanted to share. And so I began to jot down some thoughts when I finally got to catch up on some sleep. One, because the conferences were all day, 3 days straight. It was long days, long nights. And hey, line sister Ashley. And I began to think about some of the aspects of the conference. So one of the aspects of the conference was singles. And so, I had to attend some of these single conferences, some of these sessions, because I need to know. I'm 31. I'm not married. I obviously have the desire to do so. So tell me, help me out. And one of the things I was thinking about is like, why is it that one, we struggle with sex? Hey, Pam, thanks for joining. One of the things we struggle with is sex, and I know where people like to say, well, we can do grown things and things like that, or why do people deal with the spirit of perversion, or why some of us fornicate, or why is the concept of being celibate or practicing abstinence, whether it's for a week, 3 months, 6 years, why is it hard? And so I began to reflect on that topic, reflect on those questions. And one of the things I will say is that practicing abstinence or being celibate is not hard, but I will say it's not easy when you have already exposed yourself, you've already had sex. It makes it a little bit more difficult to remain that way, especially when I realize we live in a very sexual culture, very overly sex society. We know that concept that sex sells, and it's not. Rosa says she's been doing it for 2 years. I have a cousin, maybe I always post her stuff, Lakeisha Dixon. She's 37 and has been celibate all her life, is a virgin. So, it can get difficult. And so what I realized is that, by being in a very overly sex society, it is a lot more difficult to remain celibate. And so I began to, we always say go back to the word. And so when I begin to look at the word on scriptures relating to flesh, I realized all these scriptures that have to do with flesh. Mom, you're loud. And I'm on live. Sorry, y'all. So one of the things I realized with dealing with flesh, all these scriptures is like, essentially it talks about, death. It was nothing, it was almost gory or gloomy. And so I'm like, there has to be something else to help us when it comes to dealing with our flesh. And so one of the notes I jot down is that, you can't unsee what you see, but you can unlearn what you learn, because a lot of things that we do is stuff that we learn, whether from our upbringing, whether from our friends, but not all of it was good things that we were taught. So these are things that we can now unlearn. So Mom Larry said hi, and so I went back to the beginning. I went to the book of Genesis, and I was looking at chapter 3. And so it talks about, in my Bible, it's labeled as the temptation and fall of man. And so we know the story is real. Hi, Errol. It's real familiar scripture. And it essentially talks about how the serpent goes and approaches. Notice he didn't go to the man. The serpent went and approached Eve and asked her about what God had told her. And he asked her the question, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? So follow me, we going somewhere. And so I thought about that. Why did he ask her that? And so I realized the enemy sometimes will have you questioning the instructions that God has given you. Like, we know what the word says. It may have even been a prophetic release over our life. Something has been spoken over our life. And we will find ourselves questioning what we know exactly God told us. Or the enemy will ask you to verify that information. We know that, God doesn't need us to verify anything. If he said it, he meant it. If it's in his word, it's still true, it's still relevant. So we don't have to question it. And so they go on to the next part. And so she replies, it says, we may eat the fruit of the tree of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. But when I go to chapter 2, verse 15, God says, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in that day you shall eat of it, you shall surely die. So if you notice something, Eve added her 2 cents. Eve not only said that you were not supposed to eat of it, she went and added that you shall not touch it lest you die. And so I realized that sometimes we add things to our to a story, usually for 2 reasons. One is to hype it up. When we're trying to relay a story or relay something that's happened, we'll add a little extra to it, add a little extra excitement to it, just so that we can hype it up. Hey, Lakeisha. Or we will we'll add it to soften the blow, especially, those of us who are on there, we're dating. And so we'll go like to soften the blow. We don't want to break up with somebody, or we're not really feeling them. So we'll add that, it's not me, it's actually you. And so I'm like, okay, so she added her little 2 cents, because God did not say that she couldn't touch it, but she went and added that part to respond to the serpent. And so it goes on, and the serpent goes and tells her, you will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. And it also says, and so I'm like, okay, we'll find ourselves that the enemy will convince us that although God's word states what it states, he gives us grace and mercy. Or that he's really withholding stuff from us. Because you see how he tells her, your eyes will be open and you'll be like God, and knowing good and evil. And so he's trying to convince us. We find ourselves, the enemy will convince us, and then we have some friends that are convinced us, girl, it's not that bad, it's okay. Or that man will be like, just a little touch, just a little picture, it's not that bad, it's not that serious. And so we have to be very mindful of those things. And so he goes on, where she goes ahead and says that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant also for the eyes, and that it's desirable because it makes one wise. And so she takes it, she gives it to her husband, and they eat of it. And then they opened up their eyes. They knew they were naked. And so they obviously put the leaves. You all know the story. And so I realized, going back to the topic, that now the enemy has convinced us, or will convince you that, oh, it's not that bad. The repercussions really aren't severe. It's just a little knowledge. You just get a little bit of knowing good and evil. And so you go ahead, or we go ahead, or I go ahead and disobey the covenant, violate the law, or go ahead and commit the sin. And so if you keep going, it goes on where God goes into the garden. He asks, he calls out to Adam. He says, "Where are you?" And he replies, "I heard your voice in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself." And God replies, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat?" And so I realized God only asks questions because he desires transparency and not answers. And that was a true revelation that I got from the conference, that he only asks questions not because he doesn't already know the answer, because we know that God is omnipotent. He knows all. He's omnipresent. He knows all. He sees all. He knew us before we were in our mother's womb. He knew what our flaws would be. He knew what issues we would face. He knew what our downfalls would be. Now, some of our bad decisions that we just made along the way, but he knows. And so I thought about the term naked. And so when I looked at the definition, for us, we use it commonly just to say without clothes, but naked also means blatant, unadorned, unqualified, stark, bare, vulnerable, and even helpless. And so it's three things I thought about what happens when you are naked before God, or what should take place when you have been naked before God. One of the first things is that shame should, transparency, twin. And when you're naked before God, the first thing is shame should no longer entrap you. Because when people talk about what you used to do or what you used to say, how you used to act, you no longer have to cower or hide. Why? Because you've already released that to God. You've already laid it at his feet. You already came to him with your boohoo cries, your tears. You at the altar like, "Lord, I'm a liar. Lord, I'm a fornicator. Lord, I'm a cheater," whatever it may be. You've already laid that at his feet. So you should no longer feel shame because you've already been transparent with your Creator. He already knows that you're doing these things, but he has a desire for you to share it with me, bring it back to him so that he can cleanse you from that. And so I thought about the quote that those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter. So you don't have to care about what other people think. Don't allow them to shame you because of what you used to do. Or maybe there's some things you're still struggling with, but don't allow them to shame you into, because you have been transparent before God. The second thing is, or naked before God. The second thing is that when you've been naked before God, you'll be able to become transparent with others. And what you used to do or say will become your testimony. And you'll tell it first, because we'll notice a lot of times we used to do things and people, first time they see us, the first thing they want to talk about, "Oh, I remember when we was in the club," or "I remember, girl, we got high," or "I remember when we used to drink." Don't let them do that to you. Don't let them do that to you. You've already laid that down. You've already been naked before God. You can't hold that over on me. In fact, let me tell you, yes, I used to smoke. Yes, I used to fornicate. Yes, I used to be a whoremonger, but look at me now. God has transformed me. He has changed me. I've been naked before him. But I also want you to know that being transparent before God, being naked before God, allows you to be naked before the person you're supposed to be in covenant with. And until you have truly learned to be naked before God, you can't be naked before your spouse. And being naked in not just terms of physicality, but in terms of being vulnerable, being open, being completely uninhibited with that person. And that's necessary when you are trying to connect with your spouse. You have to be transparent. And that will not happen until you learn to be transparent and naked before God. And the last thing is that your freedom will set others free. When you're naked before God, your freedom will set others free. And so I thought about the scripture, Revelations 12:11. It says, "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death." And so testimonies are important. Let me say it again. Testimonies are important. Share your struggles. Share your story. Share what God has done for you, because you don't know who you are blessing, who you are motivating, who you are inspiring by you sharing that testimony with them. You don't know who you can help deliver, because they'll see, well, God, if God did that for her, what about me? In fact, I attended a conference, my cousin's conference on Friday, and one of the ladies who testified mentioned how she had been on drugs for 20 something years. Someone else raised her children, and then you look at her, she's a pastor. There's no residue, there's no evidence. And so that testimony for somebody else that may still be struggling with that will help somebody and encourage, well, if God will take her off the streets and put her in the pulpit, what will God do for me? And so you have to be willing to share your testimony. I'm part of the conference phone prayer call called Victorious Prayer Call with Prophetess Susan Frazier and also Lakeisha Dixon. They're the two founders of the prayer call. And so one of the things we always ask is for people to share their testimonies. And so in this prayer call, I think it's going on 4 years. And I only until last Tuesday did I actually share a testimony. But a lot of times it's quiet. So I realize some people think that, oh, it's not that exciting, or, it's not really major. Just to live life is a testimony. Every day you wake up, that's a testimony, because everyone doesn't get that opportunity. So you have to be willing to share your struggle. One, so somebody else can hold you accountable, but also because you can also help someone else be delivered. And so finishing up the passage from Genesis is that it goes to where God, of course, asked them, who told you that you were naked, and that have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat? Of course, he knew that. And the man quickly says, the woman who you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I ate. And the Lord God said to the woman, what is this you have done? The woman says, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you're cursed more than all cattle and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And so when I looked at that part of the scripture, I was like, sometimes we'll find ourselves committing these sins, doing these acts, fornicating, lying, whatever it may be. And we have a tendency to blame others. Yes, we do run from accountability, but we need it, twin. We like to blame everybody else but ourselves. Notice, Adam turned that thing back to God and said, listen, that came from that woman that you gave me. And so, of course, God goes to the woman. She said, well, it was the serpent. So obviously we know that the serpent was punished, and then we also have the after effects of them being disobedient. And so I notice we typically have this phrase that we use a lot, that our flesh is a mess. And our flesh is a mess. But part of that is that we just have stinking thinking. Some of it is really just our mindset. Because we haven't totally trust God, we like, well, I'll just dibble dabble. I'll just do it a little bit. I only do it once a month. I only let him come over on the weekends. I only see her, when I go out of town, whatever it may be. And so some of it is not our flesh directly. It starts off with our thinking. And so we have been given free will to make choices, and maybe not in all areas, but some of it is that we are poor decision makers. And so I realized, and I had to dwell on that, because the pastor, Adrian Davis, he did a message on singles, and he's out of Huntsville, Alabama. And one of the things he said, we have a tendency to blame the devil for like everything. And it's true. We know that. We do. We always say, well, the devil this, the devil told me this, the devil said that. It's not always the devil. Let's just be honest. We give the devil too much credit, and we blame him too often. The reality is that the enemy doesn't have that much authority, and the enemy don't have that much power. He don't have more power than what we allow him to have. And we know that we're to place him under our feet. And so we have to put ourselves in proper posture so that he remains under our feet. And so I realized that, all those things I did, or our sins that I committed, it wasn't always that, my flesh was raging. It was that I just made a poor decision. I just made a bad decision. I knew going in, some of those relationships that we had found ourselves attached to, we knew it was a bad decision when we got into that relationship. And so although God has given you the ability to think or make choices, he's also giving you a prescription for every ailment, every issue you face in this world. He has already given us things that we need to do. Yes, we got to be real about accountable for our decisions. It's not always the devil. We can't always save the flesh. We thought about it and we just went ahead and did it. And so that's just so important to know that the things that we struggle with, that there is an answer to it. There is a remedy for it. There's a remedy to it. And we need to trust God. One of the things that came out the conference was that we seem to trust God with everything, but seemed like sometimes for those of us our relationship, we trust God for money, we trust God for the promotion, we trust God for the house, we trust God for the car, but then we don't trust God with our love life. Now we want to rush the time, and we can't do that. We should not do that. And so I realized, I put a post, I think on my Instagram, I shared it on Facebook, and it said, God called you helper. And I believe that for us, especially us as women, that we have to know what the call is on our life. And once we know what the call is on our life, once we know what our purpose is as it relates to that call, it makes it easier for us to walk in it. It makes it easier for us to wait for the full manifestation once we have identified and recognized, but more importantly, accepted the call on our life. And so there is a call on each and every one of our lives, especially all of us, but I'm speaking to the women now. And you have an assignment as a woman. The Bible tells us in Genesis 2 that we were called to be a helpmate. Eve was designed and called to be Adam's helpmate. And I'm not saying your only calling is solely to be a wife or a mother. I'm not saying, that's not what I'm saying at all. But we were originally designed, created to be someone's helpmate. And so I had to look at the definition. What's a helpmate? And so a helpmate is described as a helper, assistant, attendant, supporter, friend, companion, spouse, and partner. And I noticed that the dictionary puts spouse and partner at the end. And so some of us, as we get independent, as we've been independent for a little longer, some of us I'm not just going to be doing cooking and cleaning, and I want us to understand that being a helpmate is far deeper than just cooking and cleaning and keeping house and watching babies and making babies. It's deeper than that to be called as someone's helpmate. You were designed to be someone's supporter. You're designed to be someone's friend. You're designed to be someone's companion, someone's attendant. It's far deeper than just cooking and cleaning and making babies. And so to those who say, I don't have a desire to be a wife, or I don't want to be married, or you may say, I don't want to get married again, you were still created to be somebody's helpmate. You were still created to help someone. And if it's that not your desire is not to help a spouse, but there is somebody in your walk that you can help. And so when you realize that God has, when you realize that God has designed or purposed you, created you specifically for someone, I can say for everybody, for someone, a one, divine connection, the one, you can truly appreciate why it didn't work out and why it won't work out with most other people you encounter. Sometimes I know as women, I'm guilty. You're like, well, I done gave this person all this time, all these years, all this energy, and even some money. And I'm still can't let this go, that they still went and left, or they still did this, or they still went that, or they moved on, and here you are still dealing with it. But we have to get to a place where we don't allow ourselves to be bitter or broken because of it. There is a reason why it didn't work out, because they weren't the one. They weren't who God created you to be in covenant with. They weren't the one that God designed for you. And so one of the things I love, Adrian Davis, he broke that thing down. It hit my spirit. And he went over, the whole thing with Adam in chapter 2. And so it talks about that in verse 18, he tells Adam that it's not good that man should be alone, right? And I'm going to give you a helper comparable to you. But then in verse 19, he brings him all these beasts. And Adam's job is to name each one of them, and they go on their way. And not till verse 19 and 20, and not till verse 21, did he actually create Eve for Adam. And so it makes you think, okay, God done told me that I'm going to get a wife. And then two verses later, he's sending me animals. Where is my wife? You told me, Lord, I'm going to have an Eve, and you sending beasts for me to name. And so the question, so he broke that thing down as to why. And so what happens is God was testing Adam with these beasts. He wanted to know, did he know how to, one, identify them and what to do with them? His only purpose in bringing him the beast, he needed to know that, Adam, you can identify the beast, give them a name, and let them go on their merry way. But what happens to us as singles, us unmarried, instead of naming these beasts, using our discernment and letting them go, we attach ourselves to them. We go ahead and attach ourselves to these beasts that we were supposed to just probably say, oh, okay, thank you for the compliment, but I'm going on my way. Thank you. You're cute, but I'm going to keep it moving. But no, I only speak for me as a woman, sometimes we're like, well, maybe Lord, maybe that's him. Okay, it wasn't him, but not this one. Maybe it's him or whatever it may be. And so we got to be careful. Some of these people that God has paraded in front of us, it was a test. He just simply wanted you to name that animal. But some of us made the decision, guilty. We laid with the beasts. We were shacking with the beasts. Some of us procreated with some of these beasts when we were supposed to name them, identify them, and let them go. Use our wisdom, use our discernment, because a lot of us have realized the signs were there. It was written on the wall. We knew it. We weren't supposed to be with them. We weren't supposed to go past high, and we took them $200 and passed go. And here we are, broken hearted and just dismayed, that we made the decision. And we're like, well, Lord, where's my one? You told me you were going to send me the one. Well, where is he? Because it said you told me. And so we have to just identify and know, Rosa, you ain't picky. You got to have your standards. Have your standards. And see, if we keep the standards, we can easily identify the beast. Sometimes we have to, well, he a beast, but he got a job. He a beast, but he got these degrees. He a beast, but he got a house. He a beast, but he's real sociable. She's a beast, but she got a banging body. So we got to be careful with that. Keep your standards. The standards help you identify the beast and let them go on about their merry way until you find the one that is meant for you, the one that's designed for you. So going back to that, thinking about who Adam was before you meet this spouse, before you go ahead and connect with this person, it's something that we need to know as women about who Adam was. Adam had a relationship with God. That was first and foremost. It was evident. He remained in God's presence. He had a job, ladies, and he had an assignment. He had a purpose, and he fulfilled. And so knowing all these things about Adam before God even brought up the helpmate, before he brought him this wife, knowing that Adam had this criteria, he had all these things going for him, it's important for us as women to reflect on the men, and for the men, reflect on the women that you have encountered. How many of them had that basic criteria? And that's real basic, y'all. And how many were able to maintain it? So yeah, they went to church with you, but then they couldn't keep a job. Or they had a job when you first met, and 6 weeks in, they lost it. Or they know the call on their life. They want to start this business. And then next week, they like, no, I'm going to go get this job. And then they're like, they back on the business. And then they're like, maybe working ain't for me. And so we got to just be careful with that. Look at the criteria that Adam had. Adam had a job. Adam knew his purpose. Adam stayed in the presence of God. And Adam had a relationship with God. So use that as your test. If you don't have no understandings, use those as your standards and maintain them. Do not apologize for them. They're standards for a reason. Go ahead, right, or 3 wives. So make sure you use those standards to help you identify the beast in your life. So the thing is that we also need to know about Eve, that relationship between Adam and Eve, is that God didn't create Eve because Adam couldn't do the job assigned to them, or that he couldn't fulfill his purpose. That's not why he created Eve. And so he created Eve. Yes, many argue this because he created Eve to be his partner. And we agree that two is better than one. We've heard that two is always better than one. And he created her to nurture. And I want to be clear. I said nurture, not mother him. He created her to nurture him, meaning to care for and encourage the growth and development of. That's what nurtures mean. And a nurturing woman will hear a man, the right man, the man that's designed specifically for them, and will help him see his purpose manifest. He may be the brainchild of it, but she will ensure its birth. He created Eve to ensure also that the legacy would be long lasting. A man may carry a seed, but if we want to be, politically correct, he has seed that goes into our womb. And it's there, but it requires a womb to incubate. Well, who has the womb? Us as women. And it's there to develop and grow. And not only for children, but when we're connected with the right man, when we have that divine connection, when he gives us that seed, that vision, in our womb, we help it also to grow. We help it nurture it. And so, yes, men, and when I talk about that, yes, men are able to adopt. That's a new thing. Adopt, and that's fine. But to ensure their DNA is passed on, their namesake, their origin continues, it still requires a woman. And so we need to really understand that. And so one of the things that kind of puzzled me about Eve, and I went back and I was like, this is the first identification. Yes, no more project. No project men. Be partners, not projects. We will help you with your project, but you yourself should not be the project. And so one of the things I thought about it when I was reading, this is our, just Genesis 3. Why is the first sin with a woman? Why didn't the serpent go to the man? And because the man would have recognized him. Obviously, Adam named him, so they obviously were familiar. So why did he go to the woman? And I realized, the women, we have to realize we are so important. Why? Because we help legacy continue. We have wombs. There are things that we specifically can birth. More importantly, we as women are intercessors. There's some things that only, a woman can cause to break through. And so we have to realize the importance of our purpose and our position as women. And so there's a reason why that serpent went to her. And we have to understand that as women, we're so powerful, we're so important because of what we are able to carry. And so when you recognize your purpose, your passion to fulfill it will be far greater than your passion to pacify your temporary hormones or your fleeting emotions or occasional boredom, because sometimes we get with these people or we lay up, it's because we're bored. Okay, so we need to get us some hobbies, get us some things to do. And so we have to understand women as helpmates. We can't lay with everybody. We just cannot. We cannot lay with everybody. Every time you do that, you leave a piece of you in that bed, that car, that stall, that wall, wherever you chose to do that act. And so don't get caught up in satisfying the now, when God will be willing to give you someone who will satisfy you, your needs, your purpose, and vision for a lifetime. We have to get past the temporary. We have to get past the temporary, feeling, because it don't last that long. Let's be honest, ladies. Those of us, we fornicated. We know it don't last. It don't last forever. And so we have to be willing to say that, what, I'm going to move past this temporary thing, and I'm willing to wait for something that's long lasting. And it's not just a feeling, or urge, but there's going to be long-lasting partnership. There's going to be long-lasting purpose. We're going to be long-lasting in sharing our visions, long-lasting in sharing our goals. And that's what's most important over, Jim, John, and Bob. That's not for us. And so I don't believe God will reveal our divine right mate until he believes that we are ready and we're receptive. But I would hate to realize that because I kept giving pieces of me to this person, that person, that I don't really have much left to give to the person I'm meant for, because I've given a piece of my heart over here, a piece of my heart over here, a piece of my mind here, lost all peace in the process. And so I'm like, Lord, I want a husband, but all my pieces are spread out. I have pieces over here, pieces over there. And so we have to be cognizant of that. That's right, Rosa. You have to be so focused that, anybody can't even step to you. You already know who he is. And you're like, I don't know the one. He is not. Yes, Carla, those are the words. He is not the one for me. And so, that if my husband came to me or met me now, or it was 6 months ago, 3 years ago, I wasn't ready because I was not whole. And I believe that two broken people do not equal a whole. We have to know that we have to be so content. We have to be fully developed by ourselves as individuals before we can connect to somebody else. Nobody wants to deal with a broken person, I'm being honest, and that's even as a friend. Sometimes it's tough when you're dealing with broken people, and it doesn't mean that you're not deserving of someone or deserving of your mate, but it helps when you are whole. And it doesn't even mean that there won't be some things that still need mending, because the right person will come and help you mend those things. The right person to help you overcome those past challenges. The right person to help you heal some of that process. But you still, for the essence of you, need to be a whole person. Right. Some women don't love themselves, and men too, because I've been reading some of these posts, because I don't know if she's still on. I know she had to catch a flight, and I'm talking about even some of these passes, and I'm like, you hurt, poor Tink. You hurt. It is evident in what you're saying. You're hurt. And so no, you're not ready to join in covenant just yet. Some of those issues, some of those scars, it's not even from past relationships. It could be from your upbringing. It could be some traumatic event, but you have to work on yourself to be whole, so that when you connect with that person, they not dealing with somebody else's baggage. We all come with baggage, but we don't have to bring the whole U-Haul truck. Come on, I can accept a bag or 2 or 3, but when you're telling me we got to go, unlock your warehouse baggage, that's too much. And nobody should have to deal with it. Now you and God need to get together and go and dig deep and release some of that. We can't bring all that over. We're not bringing all that into the news. Some of that you got to release. Come on, declutter, let it go, send it away, give it away, and then come back to that. And so many women believe that a man is there to complete them and complete them, and that the man for you is created actually to complement you. And let's be clear about that. We do not need to be getting or joining with people because we need to be complete. Honey, you were already complete. God created you. You were complete. Man, a God, man, you're already complete. He already designed you. And so stop looking for somebody to complete you. Because if you unhappy, when you get with them, you still going to be unhappy. That's right, sis, with a man find a way. That you are going to be unhappy. If you don't know how to be content in your alone time with just you and God, you're not going to be content with that man. You still going to find times of you alone. He got to go to work, right? He bring home the bacon. He's the provider, protector. He still got to leave that house. Are you still able to deal with being alone at times if you got to take business trips? So you have to get into a place where you realize, I don't need this man to complete me. I just want him to complement me. And two, as I said already, two broken people don't equal a whole. And God will not put your divine connection together unless you and he are both fully developed as individuals. I can't emphasize that enough. You have to be a whole. So stop jumping from person to person because you're lonely or you having hormonal issues. Stop doing that. Be whole. Woman, be whole. Men, be whole. Don't stop doing that. Don't stop jumping and jumping. Let God deal with you first. And so no man or woman wants to pay for the damage another person did. We just don't. And no one should have to. And that's why discernment is so important. I can't stress enough. Discernment is important. It helps you name those beasts. Discernment and standards help you identify the beast in your life. But also, I believe being celibate or practicing abstinence also helps you. Many men and women have laid with the opposite sex, and their intuition, even their friends, that's what I should say, just stop giving it up. Even their friends or family have warned them before the first piece of clothing was taken off and told them straight up. Your mama and daddy might even told you he or she is not the one. And now 6 months, 3 years, or 2 kids and a whole lot of debt later, you bitter and you broken when you don't have to be. And like Rosa said, it gives you clarity. It gives you clarity. And so I found myself a couple of days someone asking the question, well, what's the purpose and waiting and why? What's the difference between waiting 6 months or 3 years? Or some people, there's a single group and they'll say, like, I've seen comments where they'll say, well, I know people who gave it up the first week or the first date and they've been married 15 years. Or, they waited till after marriage and now they divorced. Okay, that was them. But I'm going to trust what the word says. And the word tells me that I'm supposed to wait, right? And so I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust God over what you're using as evidence or what you're using as a resume to get in somebody's pants. Don't do that. Listen to the advice that you're given. Listen, women, we had a thing called intuition. Men, you have it too. And if you don't, bring it to your mama, your grandma, your auntie. She'll tell you. And you have to use that intuition because you already know if somebody's not right for you. The signs are there. Your intuition will tell you. It will flow. You'll know. And, it may take a couple conversations. But, honey, let me tell you, it don't take you to lay down with him to know if he or she is not the one for you. And I truly believe, and I'm getting into that place, I truly believe that, you know what? The person who really is serious about you, the person who really is intentional about you, especially when it comes to the intention of being married, they don't have a problem waiting for you. They don't have a problem holding out. It gonna take some prayers. It may take some conversations, some daylight dating, but they will realize that you value you so much. And people have to realize it's not so much valuing the sex. I value me. I value the anointing on my life. I value my purpose. I value the things I prayed for, and I'm tired of delaying them for disobedience. I know the call that is late, on my life. So why would I continue to delay these things or put these distractions in my way when God has already promised me these things? So if you're not willing to wait, then you're really not the one for me. You clearly don't see my worth. You don't have to see me naked to see my value. And that's to be honest. And men need to learn, and I was trying to find a word, but men need to learn how to value themselves too. There's value in what you're offering too. And you don't have to lay with all the girls too. Whoever uncle told you, your uncle daddy told you, all the women that you lay with that make you a man, the devil is a lie. That's a lie. Do not listen to that. Does not make you a man. Nothing about that makes you a man. It's okay for you to wait. And let me tell you, women love a godly man. Women do. They do. Yes, they do. Okay? They love a godly man. They love a man that's willing to wait. And my thing is, they tell you it's better to marry than burn. So if you're really serious about that woman, you're really serious about that relationship, it don't take you ladies 3 years to know that. It don't take him. He don't have to try you out. You're not a car that you need to be test driving. You're not a commodity that he pick out of the lineup. You're not that. And so once you know your purpose and you know your rightful place, you can set that standard and let him know. If it's that serious, then guess what? We going to the altar. It ain't going to take us 2 years to get there. Why? Because you already know you saw value in me, right? We're connected. We have shared visions. We have shared goals. But let me add to that, because I was talking to Lakeisha at breakfast this morning. We need to be willing to seek wise counsel. That's why I said go to your mama, go to your auntie. Don't always go to your friends, because they might be, hormonal like you. So they're like, girl, at least somebody getting it. Don't listen to them. You need to realize at that point that, seek wise counsel. And there was a guy, he may watch this later, that connected with me like 3 days ago, and everything was going good. And honestly, I didn't even bother checking his profile, but we checked it today, and from the looks of it, he had money. He appears to be a wealthy man. And so and the conversation was going so good that I was like, in my mind, I was thinking, one, to use discernment, and two, I was like, you know what, you need to seek wise counsel. And so I was prepared to tell him, maybe you need to talk to someone I trust as a spiritual mentor, because if what you're saying, it sounds good. You speak in my language, so it's appealing. And so we have to be willing to seek wise counsel. Long story short, he did last past 72 hours. That's why the discernment stay on fleek. I don't care how much money he has. I don't care how well dressed he is, how well spoken he is. If he ain't for you, honey, they always reveal themselves. And he revealed himself. Oh, yes. Shantae brought up a good point. If you read her comments, stop believing the lie from hell. Oh, I need to make sure we're sexually compatible before we marry. Sex is something that can be taught. If the connection is right, and the seed will follow. So let me tell you something about that. So I don't know, you all, I share videos from this couple, and that's when I went to Georgia 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, and I went to see this conference called the Merge Tour. They actually were in Tampa this past weekend, and it's with Jerry Flowers and his wife. And if you're not following Redefine TV, please go and do so. I'm sending this plug because they deserve it. They helped me. And so what I noticed is that people brought up what Shantae brought up as far as, I need to make sure we sexually compatible. And one of the things, and I didn't really have that mindset, but it helped, is that what he said was, we have the issue for those of us who have fornicated, those of us who've had sex before marriage, and now we're like questioning, what if I give this person and it ain't good? We have to be delivered from that thought process. The reason why you say that is because you're too busy comparing that spouse to the last person, or the last person you thought it was really good with, or the person before that that really could do that thing, or whatever it is that you liked about that person, that thing that they could do. And so you have to be delivered from that comparison spirit. And I realized if you never had sex until you were married, you have nothing to compare it to. So even you wouldn't know if it was bad or not. You wouldn't know, because why? That was the only time you did it, right? And so you have to consider that. You cannot bring that mentality, well, so-and-so could do it like this, and so-and-so was doing these tricks, and so-and-so was this happening. Stop comparing. Stop worrying about, if it's going to get. First of all, God knows the desire of our hearts, right? God knows us. He created us. So he knows exactly what he needs. And I don't believe that God would connect you with somebody, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, and not also send you somebody that you connect with sexually. More importantly, communication is key. And if he has sent you someone that is a divine connection, there's nothing you can't talk about. So yes, we grown, and yes, we're adults, and we're married. We can talk about this. We can talk about what we like. We can talk about what we want to try. We can talk about what we experience. So be delivered from that concept. Be delivered from that mindset that I need to try it out to see if we sexually compatible. Stop having sex with so many different people, because what end up happening, you constantly compare the next person to the next person to the next person, that you confused. You don't know who did what and why. Stop doing that. Don't do that. Be delivered from that sexual comparison, and trust that God will send you someone that you are sexually compatible. Why? Because he created him just for you. He knew what you would need. He knew what you would desire. He knew that person gonna need and would desire. He knew that you were the one that could do it. And the rest of that is on you as far as your bedroom. But please be delivered from that thought set. So I think that what needs to happen, and how we can avoid these things in relationships, is that we need to spend more time engaging in deep conversation instead of day deep dreaming. And I'm going to be a little real with y'all, deep strokes. Come on. When we get in conversation with men, what I find is that we have surface level conversations when we are dealing with the opposite mate. We want to know, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? What did you do last night? And that's good. Those are things you need to know. But we got to start digging deeper, okay? Because people bring their representative. And I'm at the point, I don't want to meet your representative, and I don't want you to meet my representative. I want to be who I am. at all times, so I don't have to, cover it up. One of the guys at the conference brought up something that was so good. It was like, the problem that some of us face is that our representative got delivered at the altar, but not our true self. So our representative is getting the breakthrough, but not our true self. So we need to really allow ourselves to be completely authentic, be completely ourselves. Go ahead and be naked, guys. So go ahead. If he can't handle you in your true self, she can handle you in your naked self. And I'm not talking about showing you your body, but who you really are, what you really desire, what you really want, and who you are at the core of you. That's not the one for you. It makes it easier. Go ahead and ask those deeper questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is your vision? What are your goals? What's stopping you from meeting those goals? What is holding you back? What are your fears? What are some things that make you vulnerable? Because the right person can deal with those things. They will help you face your fears. They will accept your vulnerabilities. They will want to work on your goals. They'll motivate you. Same guy that I told you about. Anyway, one thing I can say from them 72 to 72 hours, or however many hours he lasted, a little 4 days, is why he liked to watch all these self-help videos. Now, I'm not going to be the one sitting watching 6, 7, 8 hours of self-help improvement videos. That's not for me. That's his ministry. But it did say, I could learn a little bit from, reading some of these things. I like to read more spiritual things, but I could also do those things. Shantae said that my list is more like, how do you feel about your soul? That's good. That's good right there. What do you think of your mother? Yes, it's important to know how they relate to their family, because if they don't like their mother, that's your question. I mean, there are some other reasons, but you want to know what is the relationship with their parent. And do you have a copy of your background? Yes, these days you do have to do some background checks on people, because again, they represent, they may even be reformed, but some things you do need to know, you do need to have revelation about. And so a man should provide intellectual stimulation before he can ever come close to providing it physically. Even if his conversation and character is on point, that does not give him access to your body. Okay? Oh yes, how do they treat their siblings? You want to know, what is their relationship like with their family? Because if you're family oriented and they have a horrible relationship with their family, it can impact your dynamics if you all get together. I dated an ex, and he didn't have necessarily a good relationship with his father. And I'm a person whose father died at a young age. So that was important to me that he connected. Why? Because I could still see the residue, the bitterness, the brokenness that he was still dealing with. And so I knew that was coming. We were engaged at some point. So that was something that we were still going to have to deal with. That was some baggage, some leftover residue that had not been addressed, had not been dealt with, that he was then bringing into relationship. And so that's important, that you dig deep with these questions. Guys, it's okay, and even with the part of being abstinent or celibate. And so ladies, maybe, and Lakeisha will always say that deliverance is a process. Deliverance doesn't always happen overnight. The taste don't just go away. Deliverance can be that, you went from seeing 10 men to now you're down to 2. That's progress. Or maybe you not fornicating every day. You brought it down to 1 day a week. That's progress. And so obviously we know what the goal is, that you're holding out, you're waiting. You're waiting to receive what God has promised you. But it's important that you are working towards something, that there is true progress. And so with that being said, and it does take time, Rose, it's true. It ain't easy, but it's possible. And so the thing that we have to realize is some of the ways that people how to just be like, I'm not having sex. And you'd be surprised how quick that conversation changed. You'd be so quick to realize how quick their interests change. Because I'm very honest, and what I said to the young man, and I'll probably share that little story about him, but when you sent me the friend request, all you could see was my profile pictures, right? So when you saw me, you know, you weren't thinking about how many books I read. When you saw that picture, you weren't thinking about, you know, how many degrees I had, because that's not posted. You weren't thinking, is she an entrepreneur? You weren't thinking, do she love the Lord? That's not what you're thinking. We know the physical is what attracts us first, but we got to get past that layer. Okay, the physical, and now what? Okay, because physical don't pay the bills, and if it does, then you that ain't your ministry. You out there doing something strange for change. So you have to get back to, okay, let's get past the physical. Yes, I'm attracted to you, but I want to truly be attracted to your heart. I want to be attracted to your character. Why? Because beauty fade, we get old, things, you know, spread, whatever the case may be. But what's gonna be long lasting is that person's character. What's gonna be long lasting, you know, is how they're able to manage life. You know, how do they manage their emotions? Those are the things that are long lasting. Those are the things that you need to find out about that person. And so it's important that you dig deep. It's important that you ask those questions that are, you know, necessary. We got to get, ladies and men, get past the shallow part of the pool, honey. Let's dive deeper with one another, because it helps weed out all these beasts that have come paraded themselves as potentials, and they had no potential. They had no business being in our presence for that long. You know, we let them stay far too long. Let me say that. We allowed them to stay far too long. And some of us know that there's an expiration date, like an expiration on the milk, but you keep it in the refrigerator. Go on and toss it out. Some of us need to get to that place that we're okay. But part of it is that was shared, and it comes from Stephen Labossiere, I hope I'm saying his name right, has a book that says God is Where's My Boaz. And so if you can follow him on Instagram and Facebook. I know some can't swim the deep, Mom. No, they not ready, and that's why you got to lead them on the edge and find somebody that's willing to dive deep with you. And so it's cool, Sharice. And so the fact of the matter is that you have to be willing to go to that place to get where God has called you to be, and more importantly, to see the full manifestation of his promise. And he's promised you that. If God gives you the desire, he's going to grant it to you. And so if God is giving you the desire for marriage, he's going to grant it to you. But we can't rush the time. We can't rush the process. Yes, some of us have delayed it because we have, you know, all these beasts that parade, and they stayed, and we shacked, and whatever the case may be, we laid with them, played with them, whatever the case may be. And so, you know, that person might have right there. But understand too that, you know, we can't miss what God has called for us, right? We don't even have that kind of power or authority. So whoever God has given to us, they're going to come, they're en route. But we need to know that we must also be in preparation. And so I want all my helpmates on here to know that you can't help but wait once you know what your purpose is. Once you know, see, I didn't even read the book, and all y'all did. Yes. Shantae brought up a good point. Lord, if we could just stop the Netflix and chill, we can wait and build with a man. Yes, ladies, stop with the Netflix and chill. It's not cute. We over 30. If he can pay for a subscription to Netflix, he can pay to take you out, okay, to the movies. So don't do the Netflix and chill. We don't. That's not acceptable. We half the time when they offering that, it's usually up front. And they don't want to spend no money. They don't really want to spend some time. They want to Netflix and chill. And next thing you know, y'all went from Netflix and chilling to doing a whole lot of other things. So we got to be very conscious about that. And so I hope that what I share with you all, because I'm pretty much done, I hope that what I share with you all is, I'm going to look up these, yes, Death to Netflix. I'm going to look up these books. Rosa said there's another book called Finally the Bride. And so, and there are some books that we do need to read. I mean, the Bible is good. I'm not saying that. Yes, read the Bible, but there's some other things that have been specifically tied to the things that we're dealing with, specifically that we're struggling with, that will help us in those areas. And so we have to be receptive. I'm going to go ahead and plug this. There is a conference coming to Fort Lauderdale. I know it's also in Atlanta, called Queenology. It's Bishop R.C. Blake's. I'm going to attend. and I encourage you to. It's called Queenology, and it relates. He has a book called The Father-Daughter Talk. Some conversations that fathers should have just had with daughters. And so I'm going to encourage you to get that book, as well as I want to say he has a book specifically called Queenology, and it's helping us as women to recognize that we are queens. And again, I cannot say that enough. Once you know your purpose, once you know your call, and you know your true purpose on your life, it makes it easier for you to walk that thing out and wait on the full manifestation. And so it's okay, my helpmates on here, my fellow helpmates, we have to be willing to wait. And so I'm looking forward to the outcome, what will happen as a result of our waiting. I foresee marriages. I'm declaring and declaring. I'm in agreement with you that we will be married women with kingdom marriages, that we will be connected to kingdom men, godly men, because we are godly women. And so we have to walk this thing out. And so for those of us, some of us that may be watching, that we're not completely there, but my prayer for you is that you pray that God helps you to get there. And if you need somebody to help you be accountable, then be willing to accept that level of accountability. Because whatever you may be dealing with, whether it's addiction, whether it's lying, whether it's cheating, whether it's fornication, whatever it may be, that's not an easy walk, and so it helps when you have a trusted person that you can deal with. Shantae says, stop looking for a father in these men. Yes, and that's why it goes back to be whole. Men have daddy and mama issues, just like women have daddy and mama issues. And so it's important that you find yourself whole. God said he will be what you need to be. So if I am needs to be a daddy to you, let him be. And I realize when I think about, like, in prayer and worship, we call God all these things, but we don't treat him as such. And one of the things we call him is our Father, but let him be a father to you. And one thing I want you to understand, that God ain't no deadbeat daddy. God is always on time. Everything, every need you have, he supplies. And he even gives you some of the desires of your heart. He even gives you unexpected blessings. So he's not a deadbeat daddy. So if you really need God to be that father for you because that's missing, that's lacking, or there's something about that relationship that you have with your dad that is not where it should be, let God be that for you. If you need a healing, let him be a healer. Trust him. Yes, go to the doctor, but trust him, because he created the doctor, right? That created the medicine. So trust him at his word. And if that is what you desire, Shantae said, God pay his child support. Yes, he do. And he's never late and is never lacking. It's always paid in full. Trust that. And so he's more than a book or religion. He's a good father. Yes, he is. And we have to trust him at that. One of the things that brought up, and I'll add this, is we always talk about this biological clock, right? And so again, I'm going to go ahead and say that's a lie. As far as your biological clock ticking, I mean, many of us have x-rays. I don't think anybody's seen a clock that's winding down in us, or a sand clock that's tipped over. We don't see that. And so one of the things that the guy said, he said, okay, if God, the man of God said was, okay, if God is your creator, right? And God knows everything about you. Are those not his eggs? For those of us who desire to still have children, are those not his eggs? We got to trust God about everything, and trust his timing. I know some of us, we don't want to be Halle Berry 40, because everybody don't have Halle Berry money, or Janet Jackson. Everybody don't have, a whole palace of nannies. So let's be clear about that. But God knows your desire. God knows his heart, and he knows his timing. And if he wants you to wait, it's for a reason. And it's usually just for a season. But we have to learn how to get through the season. And some of us stay in seasons for far too long. The season has passed and you're still there. Let's keep moving. And so we have to trust God with all of us. Trust him with our mind. Trust him with our heart. But also trust that, listen, he got that. He has the fertility on lock. Listen, we may not be Sarah, 100+ years old. We may not be Elizabeth, who was old, but know that he's able, okay? Because none of these children that he created, they went on to do great things. And he fulfills his promise. And so he will fulfill his promise to you. But you have to be willing to trust him completely, trust him wholeheartedly. And so I didn't want to be here before you long, but I hope my helpmates know that they can't help but wait. And I'm waiting with you. And so, and I'm here to be held accountable and hope you be accountable too. And whatever you need delivering from, that God will walk you through this process, because it's not easy, but it's worth it. And so I actually have the title for the next series, right? And so next Monday, same time, it's going to be what to do while you wait, right? So we know that we can't help but to wait, but we need to know what should we be doing while we wait. And no, it's not Netflix and chill. So I thank you for everyone that joined, those who shared and stayed with me on this road. I hope that anything I shared was pleasing to you, that we will, Shantae, we need to, I'm going to message you. And I hope that this was fulfilling to you. I hope that that you were receptive, and just know that I stand in agreement with you. Yes, time is everything, Miss Sarita. I hope that whatever it is you desire, and also I will say this, because there's some married people on here. Be wise counsel to these young women, please. We need it. Come on, y'all have gone through this thing. Y'all have walked this thing out. So be willing to be that wise counsel for us. One of I think I shared it before, is that I shared it on a post about Lakeisha. That one of the messages or ceremony worships, that's the word I'm looking for, asked the question, who is your Elizabeth, right? And so some of us need to find our Elizabeth. And Elizabeth was an older woman. And it wasn't until Mary got in contact with Elizabeth that, I will remind you, Rosa, the thing that we need to understand as young women dealing with older women generation, older generation need not look down on the younger generation. Y'all been there, right? But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to what we need to understand about the relationship between Mary and Elizabeth, and when they came in contact, we know how it says that what was in Elizabeth, it leaped. But the significance in that, as far as Mary being the younger one, is that sometimes you need to know, especially from an older person, what is your that purpose that God has given you, that special gift that you have, that vision you have, that is important. And it's not until you connect with someone older. And that's why it really didn't dawn on Mary until she got with Elizabeth and she began to speak, and what was on the inside of Elizabeth jumped. She didn't really realize the significance that she had the Savior in her until she connected with Elizabeth. And so that's why it's important that as generations, we begin to merge, we begin to glean from one another. It helps when we are able to glean from one another, from that older generation to that younger generation, because some young women don't know their value. Some young women don't know their purpose. Some young women, don't know their truth. And it's not until they connect with an older woman who's experienced, who knows it, who's able to say, I've gone through that thing. Because realize, when Mary connected with Elizabeth was a lot further along. So Mary needed somebody who understood what she was dealing with. And despite being this virgin with a baby and also engaged, but also realizing that she needed that affirmation. She needed that confirmation that what was on the inside of her, that what she was carrying, that purpose, that vision, that anointing that was on her was significant. And so that's what we need to understand, okay? So some of us, yes, you need to connect with you, Elizabeth, an older woman that you can connect with, that helps you. And older women, be welcome to that.